This isn't a movie, and this isn't fiction. This is the real-life case of the bone collector. Jonathan Gerlach's story shocked the public because it sounds like something out of a horror film. But it's real. Authorities say he was caught removing human remains from a cemetery in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, on January 6, 2026. Detectives from Edinburgh Police Department caught him red-handed as he was exiting the Mount Moriah Cemetery in the dark. At the time of his arrest, he was carrying a crowbar and a burlap sack containing the mummified remains of two small children, three human skulls, and various other loose human bones. And what they discovered next only made this more disturbing. When investigators searched Jonathan's home, they discovered displays of human remains, over 100 skulls, mummified hands and feet, as well as two full corpses hanging from the ceiling in the basement. Investigators described the scene as a horror movie come to life. For many, the case draws unsettling comparisons to Ed Gein, who also exhumed bodies and used human remains as decorations inside his home. The parallels are hard to ignore, and when you look at his birth chart, the patterns are impossible to deny. And in this chart, these patterns are extreme. Let's start with the sun of Jonathan Gerlach. His sun is in Libra, conjunct Mercury in Virgo. This gives a highly observant, analytical mind, someone who studies details and notices patterns and pays attention to what others overlook. Libra wants balance, harmony, and control over the environment. Mercury in Virgo sharpens that even further, the precision thinking. But this isn't just awareness, this is calculation. The sun forms a trine to Saturn in Aquarius, adding discipline, patience, and long-term planning. This is someone who can detach emotionally and think strategically. There's control here, composure, structure. But then we see the tension. The sun squares Uranus in Capricorn and changes everything. Uranus brings disruption, unpredictability, and behavior that breaks from societal norms. So while the surface appears composed and controlled, underneath there's instability. This is the kind of energy that can live a double life, controlled on the outside, unpredictable on the inside. His moon is in Aries. This is not a passive emotional placement. Aries reacts instantly. It's impulsive, raw, and driven by instinct. And the moon opposes Mars in Libra. This creates an internal war between impulse and control, between reaction and restraint. Part of him wants to act immediately, while another part filters everything through the image of balance and presentation. That tension doesn't resolve, it builds. The moon squares Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. This brings emotional instability, distortion, and detachment from reality. Feelings don't follow logic here. Boundaries blur. This can create a disconnect between what someone feels and what is actually real. Now we get to the core of the chart, Venus in Leo. Venus rules his Libra sun and his Mars in Libra. So this placement becomes the central driver of the entire chart. Venus in Libra wants to express, it wants to display, to create, to be seen. But this Venus is under pressure. It squares Pluto in Scorpio. This is where desire becomes obsession, where attraction becomes fixation. Pluto brings themes of power, control, and the taboo, especially connected to death, transformation, and what exists beneath the surface. This is not light energy, this is consuming. Venus forms a hard aspect to Uranus in Capricorn. Now we add shock, unpredictability, and behavior that breaks the societal norms. So instead of these urges staying internal, they become externalized, displayed, arranged, given form. Finally, Mars in Libra, ruling his Aries moon, shows how someone acts. But in Libra, Mars doesn't act directly. It filters action through control, image, and presentation. Again, we see the theme, nothing is purely impulsive, even when the impulse exists. Mars opposes the moon in Aries, reinforcing that inner conflict between emotion and control, and Mars squares the Uranus-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn. This brings erratic action, distorted judgment, and behavior that can be completely detached from what society considers normal. And when you step back and take a look at this chart as a whole, you see a pattern. Control and calculation from Libra and Saturn. Impulse and volatility from Aries. Obsession and fixation from Pluto. And disruption and distortion from Uranus and Neptune. And in this case, the landscape is filled with tension, instability, and obsession, all feeding into each other. What makes this chart so striking is not just one placement. It's how everything connects and how those connections reflect a pattern that in real life manifested in a way that shocked everyone around him. This isn't fiction. This is what happens when those patterns converge.